Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Will EVERGRANDE cause an economic pandemic? And what are its effects on gold and silver? Let's explore! Most of you have probably heard the name EVERGRANDE. I've talked about it very little on this channel, but it is certainly a buzzword for sure. It is the second largest real estate company in China, and it is having rippling effects, at least among the markets and the talk of the markets. But in reality, there's a lot more to this, and there's probably not much reason to panic in this economic pandemic or potential. Everybody is on edge and nervous and thinking this could be the next Lehman Brothers. But I'm of a different mindset from the research that I've done on this. And I believe that it's incumbent upon us to be cautious in how we approach these things. We know there's a lot of different sectors of the economy that are very delicate right now. And this is obviously one of them. But we have to understand a little bit about the Chinese markets. The Chinese markets are essentially companies in China are much more heavily leveraged, pretty much in debt compared to companies in the United States. Whereas the United States is as a government is much more heavily leveraged, I think, than most other countries are out there. But that's just it. Whenever you can print your own money, well, you create your own debt too. There's something to be said for what fiat currencies are all about. And what is it? What are they all about? Well, as you can see here from this Federal Reserve note, it's a debt instrument. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That is essentially the culture that we are living in today. In an era where we need whatever we need, and we need it right now, no matter how much debt we get ourselves into. Well, and just multiply that by a certain factor, a great factor over there in China, with the second largest publicly traded company here. And so there's this fear that that this company, if it were to default and it were to collapse, it could cause investors or chase them away from other publicly traded developers, which could set off a domino effect of defaults in other sectors. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll tell you why, because EVERGRANDE has a long history. They've got a very long history of being in trouble, of going down, of this kind of situation where they're in debt. And it's something that's been long-standing. They've had concerns, and red flags have been, pun intended in this case, have been out for quite a long time. Their debts have ballooned as it's borrowed to finance its various businesses, because it's kind of intertwined there. And a lot of that is from money that's been borrowed within the Chinese economy. That's why I kind of think in some way this is contained, at least to a point. Although the sentiment and the psychology of it certainly could spread, and that is one of the fears, which is why I'm not necessarily ruling it out. But in August of 2020, Beijing started reining in the property sector's excessive borrowing in an attempt to prevent the housing market from overheating and to curb debt growth. Remember, that's kind of what led to the housing crisis in 2007, 2008, and they're fearing that it could happen there. So they did create some of these stopgaps or some of these regulations in China to kind of prevent some of this stuff from occurring at a greater level. But then again, with the capitalism that is heated up over there in China, well, it's all under the umbrella of the Chinese Communist Party. And so that is a concern, obviously. But in recent news, literally within the day, we have seen the EVERGRANDE stock rebound as much as 32%. And it actually ended the day up 18%. And obviously, we're not out of the woods yet. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't. But if it does collapse, it won't be much surprise to many people. whereas a lot of what happened back in the in 2007, 2008 with Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and the like, a lot of this stuff kind of just snuck up quickly. I mean, Evergrande is essentially engaged in a Ponzi scheme. We saw that obviously too around the same time with another name that is heavily associated with the scheme. Maybe we could call it a new name, Bernie Madoff, the Madoff scheme. So that's the kind of thing when you talk about debt. When you talk about debt and transferring it, borrowing against other borrowing, there's a more of a temptation to head down that road. And this is something that when we have a company that is stumbling under $300 billion worth of debt, it's only understandable that people are going to kind of think twice, and this isn't much of a surprise. It's held by financial institutions, mainly in China, retail investors, and suppliers and home buyers in construction, which means that if this thing does fall, it is going to have a greater impact in China than anywhere else, which in a way, in a sense, compared to, since it is the second largest economy, and they aren't really a friend of the United States, it's kind of something of their own doing. And the other thing is will Beijing essentially bail out this organization? I don't know. Real estate accounts for more than 7% of the Chinese economy. That's according to their data. But some analysts estimate that the number could be much higher if other related industries ranging from construction materials to suppliers are included. And that's where precious metals comes in. No, you don't use gold or even silver for home construction, but silver is mined, especially as a byproduct of other metals, and a lot of those metals are used in those industries. So we could see a decrease in demand if the Chinese economy suffers. Well, more than likely, demand for silver, and in some cases maybe gold, will decrease because people can't afford it, and it is not utilized in some of these other sectors of the economy. So that is one of the things that actually could send gold and silver prices falling to a degree. There was a statement saying that we don't expect government actions to help Evergrande unless systematic stability is at risk, and that is the thing. Everybody saw this coming, including the government, and so they're more than likely preparing for a dent in the economy there, a pretty big dent, but it's something they'd rather not take that risk on and bail them out. In other words, Evergrande, though it may be the second largest real estate development company in China, they're not too big to fail because they're built on this fluff of debt. And so the government may be focused on guiding Evergrande through an orderly debt restructuring or bankruptcy process, where essentially the big players that are owed will get paid, but the middle tier sectors will get pennies in the dollar, and small investors will get nothing. And they're willing to sacrifice those smaller investors and even the midline in order to protect the most important aspects. And so that is the only situation that is the collateral damage they're willing to take. If a contagion from Evergrande were to cause other large developers to fail, would the government step in directly? They believe it could hit the financial system from Evergrande alone will still be manageable, is what they're thinking. But, it just depends on the psychology of the markets, especially in Asia, for sure. And so, but more than likely, we've got about 30 days before the default actually sets in, because there is this grace period. And that's another reason why October very well may be the month to watch in terms of where the precious metals will go before the end of the year. Most of you are aware that I have made a prediction for gold and silver, and the prices have been moving in the opposite direction. Yea, though, I'm going to stick with my prediction. If anything, just to be stubborn and to help you understand that I don't live and die by my predictions. I do it mainly for entertainment purposes, for fun. But I mean, I do like to think that my predictions are based in the world of reality, based of my somewhat limited understanding of the markets. But I do feel like I have enough of an understanding that I can make a prediction with an educated guess. And I'm still holding on to silver at touching, maybe not staying at, but around $30 an ounce. Now, originally I said 30 to 35, but I'm going to say that it might hit $30 an ounce again, which is a far cry from today's price, which is $22 and about 75 cents. Gold, I still think could hit $2,000 an ounce. Yes, I still believe that, which is about where palladium is right now. It's gone down that much, palladium has. It's actually $2,070 right now. But gold, sitting around $1,750, I believe could touch $2,000 again. But again, those are where I think the price could hit before the end of the year, at least at some point. It becomes less and less likely as the time goes on. But with things like what's happening here with EVERGRANDE, though I don't think it will cause an economic pandemic, it could cause enough concern in the markets to cause a temporary price increase in the metals. And it may be because of some factor that may come in play that maybe somebody didn't think about with those long-standing concerns that may not, hey, it was a little bit worse than we thought. That very well could be the case. But I think there's enough good arguments as to why gold and silver will not go up in price than it would to go down. And so therefore, I'm kind of keeping a cautiously optimistic point as far as economic ripple effect throughout the world economy on this. But nonetheless, the fundamentals of the metals remain in place no matter where they are minted. And as you can see here before you, I have a display of coins that were minted in China. These are Chinese pandas of various sorts. I have a personal animus against collecting Chinese pandas new. In other words, I do not get the current year issue for two reasons. Number one, they have abandoned the standard, the empirical measurement standard of weight. In other words, the 1 ounce, they have moved to grams, 30 grams for 1 ounce, and you know, the 15 gram, 8 gram, and 3 gram for the different sizes for their gold, and then silver at 30 gram, and then they go up from there. Kilo, I think, is maybe the biggest size of panda I've seen or heard of. Regardless, that's one reason. The other reason is China is as a country not doing enough or hardly anything to stop the fakes, not only of their own products hitting the Western market, but of United States products as well. And so therefore, any kind of a Chinese panda I get will either have to be one that I receive as a gift, or I get a really good deal on my LCS. I won't really even buy them from a bullion dealer anymore, even if they're backdated stuff. And the last ones that I bought brand new were the 2015 pandas, as you can see here. I did a whole video about these when they were released, and they were the last ones to have to be weighed in ounces. These are 1 ounce silver panda, 1 ounce gold panda, and these pandas, for some reason, that single year, they did not put the weight and the purity on the coins. And some of them came a little bit underweight, but it's sort of a side story there. But nonetheless, that is the case here with the pandas, and why I'm not getting them anymore. And then you can see here's a 2 ounce thick silver round that I wouldn't want to say commemorates, but I can't think of another word to describe it. But that's when the pandemic started, the coronavirus, and this thick 2 ounce round I got from Salivate Metal. It's pretty cool looking round, and it is a round that says, hey, we are united during the COVID-19 pandemic, which turned out to be anything but the truth. We certainly were not united during the COVID-19 pandemic, anything but. But regardless, it was a nice thought anyways. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below about the story. Do you agree, disagree? I'm certainly open to any opinion on this matter with Evergrande. There's a lot of complexity in it, but it is making headlines, so I thought I would address it specifically in this video. A multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe!